Welcome, everybody, to the Liberty Report here on Patriot TV with me, your host, Alex Newman. It's wonderful to be with you. Folks, today we've got a lot to talk about. Massive corruption at the UN. And I mean, corruption doesn't even begin to describe what we're dealing with here. We've literally got terrorists under cover of UN diplomatic immunity helping perpetrate terrorist attacks. It's worse than you could possibly imagine. And the climate lies, the hoax, the fraud that we are constantly being subjected to might be coming to an end. We've got a very experienced analyst and expert in this subject coming up in just a moment. But I want to thank you for tuning in here to Patriot TV. Our first guest is here to talk to us about what's going on with the Trump administration on the climate front, the energy front, the environment front, and also some of the incredible lies that we are just bombarded with all the time. You must have heard it a million times from the fake media. The hurricanes are getting worse. I live here in Florida. I hear it all the time. Well, Frank Lasee, former state senator, author of Climate and Energy Lies, Expensive, Dangerous, and Destructive, joins us now to discuss. He, of course, served in Governor Scott Walker's administration. He's got a lot of experience in this. His articles have appeared all over the place, including the Washington Compost, which we will not hold that against him. And you've got a new article out also. I want to talk about that too. But let's just start with the Trump administration. Frank, it's great to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. What is going on with Trump? He's signed a whole bunch of executive orders on energy, environment, the Paris Agreement. What do you make of it?
It's really, he's doing excellent work. We are headed in the right direction. Finally, he's ended the EV mandate for electric vehicles. A big difference there. He's got to end the subsidies that we're giving to vehicles, not just the subsidies to individuals, but that is coming. He's pointing us in the direction of more energy, and people take our reliable, affordable energy for granted, except when you go to the gas pump and it gets a lot more expensive. And we've been lied to. One of those many lies, and they're exposed in my book, Climate and Energy Lies. The wind and solar are cheaper. And we've heard that mantra from the media over and over again. They make endless lying articles claiming that it is, when in fact it's more expensive. And the reason it's more expensive is it only works when the sun's shining for solar, and it only works when the wind is blowing for wind power. And they literally produce little or no power, both of them 70% of the time. So this means we have to pay for, keep full-time power that's very expensive to build $1 billion natural gas plant. And then we displace it and pay for wind and solar in addition to it. So they're add-ons, they're more expensive. One of the things I talk about and help people to understand it so we can talk to others, because you can't convince the crazy climate craze to join the religion or are using it to get grift and graft to make money. But for regular people who do decide elections, we need to help them understand it. Why is it more expensive? You have a couple gas cars in your family. So somebody convinces you to buy a solar car, and the federal government will pay for half of it. That's what they pay for the solar panels. And they'll give you a 30% credit for every mile you drive it. So you buy it. You get the government to give you half. You think you're going to save money, but then you find out you can't take it to work because it gets dark in the evening. It's a cloudy day. It's a rainy day. You can't use it. So you have to keep your gas cars too. Your car costs just went up. Then you add a wind car. You can't even take that to the kids' soccer game at night because the wind might stop blowing before you get home. So now you're paying for 4 cars. That's exactly what they're doing. And they want to keep adding wind and solar. It's even worse because it's borrowed money, adding to our national deficit of $36 trillion. And 80% of those things are built and made in China. So we're taking our borrowed money, leveraging and driving up our electric rates to make things more expensive for everything, and sending the money to China to buy these things. Terrible policy. Trump is reversing this. He's put holds on all kinds of this, and we really need to. And one of those big lies when they passed their bill, the new green scam, as Trump calls it, and it really is, they said it was going to cost $369 billion of federal subsidy, money we don't have. It's more like $1 trillion or $2 trillion. So we've got to get Republicans to repeal this in the House and the Senate. That's going to be a tough order because many of them are starting to like the graft and the money being spent in their districts. So there's a lot going on there, but Trump is heading us in the right direction. Pro-energy, lowers costs when it's plentiful and good supply. Building $1 billion, I've written some articles on this. Each LNG plant to export natural gas, $16 billion in economic activity, literally thousands and thousands of good union jobs that pay really high wages during construction, and 400 or 500 or 600 jobs downstream for the lifetime of it, which is multi-decades, that helps our Europeans, provides natural gas, and allows us to keep growing the industry. all good things. And tax revenue will come from all of that, more better paying jobs. Trump's doing a lot of great work in climate and energy area.
Yeah, it's been fascinating to see this. I think it's beyond anything that even his most vicious critics and his staunchest supporters expected. And you said something really important. I want to pick up on that some Republicans are starting to enjoy this graft. I was at the UN Climate Summit just a couple months ago over in Azerbaijan, and 5 Republican congressmen showed up, and every single one of them, yeah, we need oil, we need gas, etc. But oh, we got to keep reducing CO2 emissions, and we got to do more carbon capture pipelines and all this nonsense. Trump now has ordered a review of the endangerment finding that CO2 is actually pollution. And all this stuff depends on the idea that CO2 is pollution. Frank, what do you think? Is CO2 pollution, should it really be regulated under the Clean Air Act by the EPA?
No, it should not. Absolutely, it shouldn't. Each of us are exhaling CO2 all the time. We learned about this in grade school, if they weren't propagandizing you, about the circle of life and photosynthesis. Plants need CO2. They make oxygen and carbohydrates, the things that we all eat and animals eat that makes the world go round, turns it green. And the world is greening because of more CO2. NASA, you can still find this. It hasn't been erased by Google or made impossible to find. Just Google search 2016 CO2 fertilization. And you'll see that there's a report there by NASA and scientists that the world is 35% greener. 35% greener in just 40 years. Crop harvests are growing every single year because of additional CO2. And those scientists attribute that 35% greening to 70% of that is because of additional CO2. And its CO2 will take 200 years to double at present rates. And plants grow best at 3 to 5 times the amount of CO2 that we have in the atmosphere now. So it's not even optimum for most plants. And greenhouses pay to add CO2 into it because it makes plants grow so much better, bigger, faster, better harvests, better flowers, better fruits, better grains, and they tolerate drought and heat better because they have less little breathing holes because it's easier for them to breathe the CO2 that we're exhaling. And all good things. They've turned this stuff on their head to lie. And it's the UN is one of those organizations that I think are truly evil that are using this great big lie for purposes to control all of this. Because what better place for the UN to boss every nation in the world around on trying to solve a worldwide problem that's not solvable because it's not a problem, first off. And number two, if you believe they're garbage, why is China getting a buy? China creates more and releases more real pollution and more CO2 emissions than all other developed countries combined, including the United States, all of us combined. And they get 56% of all their energy from coal, and they're building hundreds of coal plants. And we're supposed to be on a coal diet. We should be exporting our natural gas. We should be using our coal. It's safe. We use clean coal technology. It provides half the drywall in America, the solids they take out of it. There's all good things about our energy and the energy policy going forward. It's such a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And unfortunately, so much of this agenda, like the scam that CO2 is pollution, is just driven by outright lies. You've got a new article out. Climate change isn't making hurricanes worse. Here's why. I tried putting it into several of the major search engines. It is completely impossible to find. We know now the UN's got a partnership with Google to bury all this stuff. But tell us a little bit about this, because we all hear it every day. Oh, because of climate change, now we have more hurricanes, and poor Florida. I live in Florida. Is climate change making hurricanes worse? What does that even mean?
It absolutely is not. We just went through a period, 11-year period from about 2006 to 2017, where we had no landfalling hurricanes at all. Highly unusual. We've had some recently. They're not more powerful than in the past. In the most active decade, according to NOAA, this is according to government statistics, is the 1940s. We had 24 landfalling hurricanes of category 3 through 5, the most powerful. And we had 10 category 5 hurricanes landfalling during that decade in 1940s. During the 1780s, during the American Revolutionary War, the most deadly hurricanes, and it was a very active decade for hurricanes then, and we didn't have very good record keeping, but the most deadly hurricane that killed 22,000 people happened in the 1780s. And there were nowhere near those earlier times for hurricanes, but yet they propagandize us. We have a daughter and a future son-in-law who live in and moved to Asheville just a few months before the Asheville floods all happened. Well, those same floods happened in the 1960s and about 1910, I think 1913, but those same exact floods happened 60 years ago and 100 years ago or 110 years ago. And then they pretend as if this is unprecedented, never happened before, blah, blah, blah. And those are all just lies, folks. And then why they changed it from global warming, because warming is good. That's, the use of their language is amazing. Well, we're a couple of degrees warmer than they call pre-industrial times. It's also called the Little Ice Age. Hard to sell us that a few degrees warmer than the Little Ice Age is a bad thing, or that we should go back to the Little Ice Age temperatures, or the hidden lie that if we just took out CO2, somehow weather would stop, we wouldn't have more hurricanes, or they'd be less intense. I mean, it's all just built on all kinds of lies. And the energy policy that it drives are also built on lies, as I mentioned earlier, with wind and solar. So it really is amazing. Hurricanes, it's same thing with wildfires we have in Los Angeles. Complete and total government fail, both at the state and the local level. And you have other states, well, what do you mean? Well, Texas, Florida, North Carolina, Wisconsin, Idaho, all have huge amounts of forests, and they don't have mega forest fires. Why? Because they do best management practices. They take out the brush either manually, or they do controlled burns when the weather's right and it's not windy, and they have the fire departments prepared. They cut fire breaks so it can't go exponential, and they take out the underbrush. That's what you need to do. California on purpose stopped doing this. That's why insurance companies canceled 70,000 policies in this area, because they cited right in their cancellation, the risk of wildfires is too high. We will not insure in this area. So, but then they blame it on climate change. So they can get, we're leftists and we want to let the forest go wild. Well, then you have major fires, and then we don't have to take responsibility for it. And the same thing in Los Angeles. Californians passed a referendum to add almost $8 billion 14 years ago to build reservoirs to retain more water for exactly this purpose. Not a single one has been built. But 14 years ago, they were authorized to spend $8 billion, and they haven't done it.
But it's amazing. Yep. And I mean, they can't even keep their own lies straight. Just a few days ago, I saw a BBC headline, could the UK actually get colder with global warming? After decades of saying it's going to get warmer, now it's going to get cold. These people are really something else. Frank, we're out of time in this segment. What's the best way for people to follow your work, and how do people keep in touch?
Very, very good. Join us at truthinenergyandclimate.com, truthinenergyandclimate.com. Sign up for our weekly energy and climate newsletter. You can get that on our website. And then also buy my book so you can talk about it and be educated. It's a little bit thick, about 300 pages, but it has a lot of graphs, references, sources, so that you can see for yourself the lies that I've described, so you can arm yourself first to understand and not be alarmed. And then secondly, to be able to talk to people in the middle to help them understand why it's evil, why it's bad, and why they're doing this to us. And they have real other purposes, and we should talk about what they're really after, because their agenda is truly evil. It's aligned with what China is. They're helping China, and there's a lot of other things to unpack with this. But those are the two best places, truthinenergyandclimate.com, and buy the book, Climate and Energy Lies, Expensive, Dangerous, and Destructive.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Frank. We're going to have to get you back for another segment. I really want to break down, what's the real agenda here? Hugely significant. So we'll get you back soon. Thank you once again for joining us today.
Hey, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. All right, folks, stay with us. We're going to be right back after these quick ad messages with Peter Gallo, longtime UN investigator turned whistleblower, breaking down the latest. Stay tuned.
Attention business owners and entrepreneurs. Patriot TV is launching a brand new TV series showcasing American-made products, and your business could be featured. Whether you sell your products online on Etsy or Shopify and dream of reaching millions of viewers on smart TVs like Samsung, Sony, TCL, and LG, or apps like Roku, Android, and Apple TV, this is your chance. We're searching for US-based businesses offering all types of products and services proudly made in the USA. If you've ever wanted to showcase your products on TV like QVC or the Home Shopping Network, now's your opportunity. Support our American economy, grow your business, and be seen by loyal Patriot viewers across the country. Know someone with a business or have a business yourself? Don't miss out. Contact us at supportingpatriots.com today. Be a guest on this new exciting TV series. Let's put your American-made products in the spotlight.
I couldn't give anything a higher endorsement.
I would be remiss had I not include Cardio Miracle on my very short list of secrets.
It's the real deal. It's a real product. It's not another supplement.
I'm operating about 6 to 8 hours, and I've noticed that being on this Cardio Miracle has made a huge difference.
Since I started taking Cardio Miracle, about 8 months into it, the benefits have been fantastic.
You know, if I get hungry, then I just have a Cardio Miracle.
Not only is it safe, but it's necessary to take Cardio Miracle to stay well.
This let me sleep. It's filling up more energy, more get up and go. And it's all because of what this company does.
For me as a doctor, Cardio Miracle is a staple.
Cardio Miracle to me is hope in a glass.
To try Cardio Miracle for yourself and get a special fan discount, go to the host page right now and click the link for Cardio Miracle.
What do a neurosurgeon, a country artist, and a television and radio host have in common? They all saw the writing on the wall. Big banks sharing your financial information with big government. Join them as owners in Old Glory Bank, the pro-America online bank that protects your privacy, security, and liberty. Invest today at own.oldglorybank.com.
Welcome back to the Liberty Report. I'm your host, Alex Newman, here on Patriot TV. Thanks so much for staying with us over the break. Folks, before we get to our next guest, Trump is doing huge things on the United Nations, or as I call it, the United Abominations. Just got us out of a number of critical agencies. We've got an expert who comes from that system, became a whistleblower, to break it all down. But before we do that, I want to encourage you to get over to patriot.tv. Go to patriot.tv/Newman, and you can sign up to be a Patriot Defender member. You're going to get access to all kinds of exclusive content, incredible discounts on various different products. And also you can get something that I have been taking that I really, really like. It's called Cardio Miracle. It's a supplement. It's got all kinds of different nutrients and minerals that your body really, really needs to stay healthy. It's great for your heart. So go check it out. You can find that all at patriot.tv/Newman. And when you go there, you're actually going to get a 10% discount when you do it through our page on Patriot TV. So get over there, patriot.tv/Newman, and sign up to become a Patriot Defender member. Now, if you've been paying attention to the news, you know Trump is really doing a lot of stuff, and some of what might have been lost in the shuffle is actually really important. He's just gotten us out of a few really critical UN agencies, including the UN Human Rights Council. I put that in air quotes. It's run by a bunch of crazy dictators. And then you've got the UNRWA, the UN Relief and Works Agency, that purports to serve Palestinian refugees, but actually has a little bit of a different ulterior motive, if you will. At least that's according to our next guest, Peter Gallo, who for a long time was an investigator with the UN Office of Internal Oversight Services, the OIOS. That's basically the UN's internal policing mechanism. And Peter's got a new report out that he just sent to me, UNRWA and Hamas, the terrorism connection cover-up. Peter, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for joining us. Tell us about Trump's decision to get out of UNRWA and why UNRWA is so nefarious.
Well, in terms of the decision, I will describe that as a no-brainer. The problem with UNRWA is it is perpetuating a situation in the Middle East. The Middle East conflict, to me, represents the manifest failure of the UN system, basically from the get-go. And before people get into the argument of talking about, oh, the Israelis have done this and the Palestinians want that and all the rest of it. No, the UN was set up at the end of the war basically to prevent international conflicts. And then, of course, the Nuremberg war trials at the end of the war, we prosecuted the Nazi leadership for waging an aggressive war. Well, at the same time, there was this problem: how do we deal with the political violence in what was at that time the British mandate of Palestine and Transjordan? And Britain gave the problem to the UN. Okay, good. So there was an opportunity for the UN to do what it was set up to do and resolve this problem. It was put to a vote, Resolution 181 in 1947. And guess what happened? The two-state solution was adopted. And there you go. There's your problem solved by the UN, except for the fact that 5 Arab countries who were member states of the UN, who'd signed up to the UN Charter, didn't like it, and then proceeded to wage an aggressive war against Israel. A couple of years after, we'd basically prosecuted the Nazis at Nuremberg for doing the same thing. And UNRWA was set up to look after the refugees from that conflict. But the problem is, as far as Palestinians are concerned, refugee status can be inherited. So you can be, a rocket scientist or a consultant neurologist working at Johns Hopkins University Hospital, but because your grandfather was as a Palestinian who lived in that part of the world, as far as the UN is concerned, you are still a refugee, which of course is patent nonsense, but it underscores the idea and the political idea in the UN that the Israelis should not have been allowed to have won that war. And it underscores the ability that if you complain loud enough and long enough, it's okay if you start a war and then lose it. Refuse to accept the fact you've lost it and give the world 75 years of nothing but conflict and terrorism because you refuse to abide by the rules of the organization that you set up with. And there's no accountability. There's no problem with that. The United States taxpayer pays 28.8%, or at least did up until last year, paid 28.8% of the budget for UNRWA. If you go back and look at the contributions that UNRWA is getting from the 5 Arab countries that started the war in 1948, and you can accuse of creating the problem, together they pay 0.1% of the financial contributions to UNRWA. And President Trump has quite rightly decided that enough is enough. This is not a good use of US tax dollars. And not only that, but UNRWA as a UN agency is essentially infiltrated and controlled, certainly in Gaza, by a proscribed terrorist organization. And there is no good reason in his mind, nor indeed in mine, and nor indeed in most of your listeners, as to why the US government should continue to fund this.
Yeah, I've been following the UNRWA for almost 15 years, almost my entire journalistic career. And I'll never forget the first few articles I did on it was about the textbooks they were using in their refugee schools, where they were teaching little Arab children that they had a responsibility to wage perpetual jihad on those evil Jews, and that the Palestine needed to be free from the river to the sea, and it was unacceptable for these apes and pigs to be occupying their land. And it turns out that during this October 7th, and you talk about this in your report, that there were numerous people in UNRWA who were actually directly involved in that. And instead of actually firing them and holding people accountable, they gave them severance pay. They sent them out the door on their jolly way with everything
Well,
is this? Go ahead, Peter.
This is the anomaly. The UN essentially panicked when the Israelis accused provided them with 12 names and said these individuals are UNRWA staff members, and they were implicated in the terrorist atrocities in Israel on that day. And the UN announced two things. Number one, that they were summarily fired. And number two, that OIS, which is the office I used to work for, was going to conduct an investigation. At which point I said, hold on a minute, I don't think they're able to do that. They have no jurisdiction to investigate staff who've already been fired. They have no experience of operating in a terrorist environment. You cannot actually walk around in Gaza conducting an investigation at the moment. You might realize there's a major armed conflict going on. The people you want to interview cannot get out of Gaza. And this is, essentially just a waste of time. So you can go back and read the op-ed piece, which I had published in the Wall Street Journal shortly after the announcement was made. And then what I've done is I've looked at all the information, which is all in the public domain, and stitched it together. And the result of that investigation was, guess what? That the investigation failed to prove anything. They failed to prove that any of the individuals who were under investigation had participated in terrorism. But that was covered up by the announcement that 9 people have been fired as a result of that investigation. In reality, no, 9 people had been dismissed, but not for misconduct, for the same reason that they were fired. And this is another thing. Can you, in fact, fire someone twice for the same misconduct without re-employing them in the first place? The UN appears to believe that you can. So you had an announcement made at the beginning of August saying that 9 people have been terminated, but some of the people who have been terminated were already terminated back in January. So explain to me how that works. And all of them have basically been terminated under a provision in the UNRWA staff rules, which says that anyone can be terminated in the interests of the agency. So it's employment at will. And the implication of that is that if you are terminated in the interests of the agency, you become eligible for severance payment. So that's where your tax dollars are going if you want to join the dots.
It's just so amazing. There's so many other things I want to talk to you about, Peter, but we're almost out of time. We've got just about a minute left. How can people learn more about this? And we're going to have to get you back to go into more depth, but how can people learn more about this and follow your work?
That's your job, Alex. They should listen to your program. You can.
Oh, I agree, absolutely. But is this report going to be publicly available, Peter?
Anybody who's I'm a one-man band. I am going to publish it. I've not got around to that yet. I've been working on this for months. But if anyone wants a copy, if anyone is wants to follow up on it and anything else, I'm happy to share a draft. If they if any of your listeners get in touch with you, you can put them in touch with me and I'll certainly let them have it.
Okay, very good. And folks, if you want to get a copy of that report, you can reach out to us on our website, libertysentinel.org. Just click that little contact tab and our staff monitors those closely and we'll get you the draft of the report. Peter Gallo, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for doing this very important work, exposing all of this absurdity. And I hope we can talk to you again very soon.
Anytime, Alec.
I appreciate you very much. All right, folks, that's all we have time for today on the Liberty Report. But I want to thank you for tuning in. Thank you for all that you do for God and our country and your family. We have got to keep moving if we're going to preserve this for our children and our grandchildren. Stay tuned. There will be more on Patriot TV right after this, and we'll be back again, God willing, tomorrow. Until then, thanks for watching, and God bless you all.